So last night, Biden gave a response to the Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity, and I thought it'd be interesting to play that and give my own personal response for it. Here it is.
The presidency is the most powerful office in the world. It's an office that not only tests your judgment, perhaps even more importantly, it's an office that tests your character. Because you not only face moments when you need the courage to exercise the full power of the presidency, you also face moments where you need the wisdom to respect the limits of the power of the office of the presidency. This nation was founded on the principle.
The presidency definitely has limits. The limits are set by Congress. Congress, for decades and decades and decades, have basically not put limitation on the president and instead have let him run roughshod over them. The one exception I would say is Trump, in which they tried to impeach him twice on spurious charges.
That there are no kings in America. Each of us is equal before the law. No one is above the law. Not even the President of the United States.
So no one is above the law. No one is above the law. At least according to President Biden. The same President Biden, whose son sat on the board of Burisma, and we have video of Biden when he was vice president saying that he got rid of the prosecutor in Ukraine, Viktor Shokin, who was actively trying to investigate Burisma. But nobody's above the law. 10% for the big guy, but nobody's above the law. His AG, Merrick Garland, is in contempt of Congress right now, and he's not doing anything about it, but nobody's above the law. Biden's prosecuting and persecuting President Trump with a bunch of trumped up charges, but nobody's above the law. Biden, who when vice president, and I think also when senator, took classified documents home when the president is the only person that can declassify classified documents. But Biden took everything home without that power, and yet nobody's above the law. Trump has the current documents case against him right now with Jack Smith down in Florida, and they're saying, oh, nobody's above the law. He took stuff home. He shouldn't have taken stuff home. He's guilty. The president is the only one with power to declassify classified documents. So whether or not Trump did that, I don't know. I wasn't there, but he does have that power. If he has that power, and he did declassify those documents when he took them home, there is no case. Biden, on the other hand, he took documents home. He took documents to a few different locations. They were classified. He didn't have the power to declassify them. He should be charged, but nobody's above the law. Okay.
Today's Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity, that fundamentally changed for all practical purposes.
No, it didn't. The only thing the Supreme Court finding or ruling found was that the precedent that has been set for hundreds of years is still there. If the president is within the bounds of the presidency, he is immune from any charges. If he steps outside those bounds, then he can be prosecuted. If he's within the bounds and he does something wrong, then he can be impeached. Obama drone striked a 16-year-old kid, an American citizen nonetheless. He murdered that child, and he claimed presidential immunity. He was never charged. Should he have been impeached for that? I definitely think so. Should he have been convicted in the Senate for that? I also think so. Should he have been tried for murder after those two things? Yes. In my opinion, President Obama should have been impeached, convicted, and then tried for murder for the drone bombing of that 16-year-old American citizen. But did he? No. Does the Congress have the ability to go back and impeach previous presidents, convict them, and then have them tried? That's something that's never been adjudicated before. I would really like it if it was, because Obama murdered a kid, and that's not okay.
Today's decision almost certainly means that there are virtually no limits on what a president can do. This is a fundamentally new principle, and it's a dangerous precedent.
Not a new principle.
Because the power of the office will no longer be constrained by the law, even including the Supreme Court of the United States.
Impeachment.
The only limits will be self-imposed by the president alone.
This
decision today has continued the court's attack in recent years on a wide range of long-established legal principles in our nation, from gutting voting rights and civil rights to taking away a woman's right to choose.
Okay, gutting voting rights and civil rights. I'm not exactly certain what he means on civil rights. Voting rights, there have been some cases to try and shore up voter integrity, to make sure that you're an American citizen and you're alive. And I think those two things should be a base standard, so that only people that are alive and eligible to vote can vote. I think that's fairly reasonable. Yeah.
To today's decision.
Also, the woman's right to choose. According to the Constitution, anything that's not found in the Constitution is left up to the states. That's the 10th Amendment. Many things that the federal government is currently doing is not found within the Constitution and should be left up to the states. One of those things was abortion. That should be left up to the states. And since that's been done, a lot of different states have made different rulings, some making abortion more permissive, some making it less permissive. That's called federalism. That's the 10th Amendment. That's constitutional. The Supreme Court did nothing wrong in that regard.
That undermines the rule of law of this nation. Nearly 4 years ago.
Now, if you're wanting to have a national standard on abortion, the way to do that is to make an amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Just like the 13th Amendment, just like the 14th Amendment, just like the 16th and 19th Amendment. 19th Amendment is for the women's right to vote. Is the woman's right to choose less important than the woman's right to vote? Why not just have Congress make an amendment to the Constitution to solidify abortion in the United States? Currently, the Supreme Court did the exact right thing by making it a states' rights issue, not a federal issue.
My predecessor sent a violent mob to the U.S. Capitol to stop the peaceful transfer of power. We all saw with.
So this is so frustrating that 4 years ago this happened. Well, not quite 4 years ago. This happened, and we're still talking about it. Trump never said, go storm the Capitol. Ray Epps did. But Trump never did. He did say fight like hell, but he also said peacefully make your voices heard. When the craziness happened, Trump immediately got on Twitter and he put out a tweet saying support the law enforcement, don't get out of hand, or something along those lines. And he also made a video basically saying the same thing. Go home, peacefully exit the Capitol. But then his his Twitter account was taken down because that was inciting violence by calling for them to peacefully leave. I don't know. There's also about 1,400 hours of Jan 6th videotape that has not been released to the public. What has been released has shown that the story that has been fed to the American people is not what actually happened. The Buffalo Shaman, he was led through the Capitol by the Capitol Police. He was never any danger to anyone. He prayed for them. He was very cordial and nice to them, and they were nice to him. But he was sent to prison. I think he was supposed to be in prison for like 5 years, and it wasn't until the video of him walking through the Capitol was released that people went, oh, well, nothing happened there. Why is Jacob Chansley in prison? We don't know, because he was led around by the police. Anyway.
Our own eyes. We sat there and watched it happen that day. Attack on the police, the ransacking of the Capitol.
Now, it was incredibly peaceful up until the police started firing tear gas and concussion grenades and things like that into the crowd. And that's a little bit of the video that has been released, that the police actually instigated a lot of the violence. Yes, the barricades were breached by people, including Ray Epps, and that definitely shouldn't have been done. I wonder how many people connected to the FBI and other federal agencies were the first in. In one of the court cases, there were at least 50 federal agents or people connected to federal agencies involved in the riot on the Capitol. Also, there's videotape of people from Antifa changing from their standard Antifa clothing into Trump gear right before the riot on the Capitol. So was it all the MAGA insurrectionists that were there? No. There were other people in the crowd, and it seemed like the people that were not for Trump were trying to instigate things.
A mob literally hunting down the House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi.
I never heard any of that. I've stayed fairly up to date on news about Jan 6 because I thought it was interesting. People went into her office and took some pictures because it's the Speaker's office and they thought it would be fun and funny. Someone stole her laptop, but I never heard anybody saying that they were trying to hunt her down. I think that's gaslighting.
Gallows erected to hang the Vice President, Mike Pence.
The gallows were ridiculous. I don't know who put up the gallows. I'm assuming it wasn't a Trump fan because, well, one, the gallows were just for show. They were like 4 feet tall and couldn't have hung a midget. And who goes to a rally with the makings of a mock gallows. That seems a bit like a setup.
I think it's fair to say it's one of the darkest days in the history of America.
That I do agree with him on. The amount of damage that happened there to freedom and liberty and the right to protest was ridiculous. It was a very dark day for America in that regard.
Now the man who sent that mob to the U.S. Capitol.
He never sent them. He said, peacefully make your voices heard. He never said go into the Capitol. That was Ray Epps.
Capitol is facing potential criminal conviction for what happened that day. And the American people deserve to have an answer in the courts before the upcoming election. The public has a right to know.
Yes, the public has a right to know. That's why all the tapes should be released so that the public can see all the video that happened on that day, not just what's been curated by the Jan 6 committee.
The answer about what happened on January 6th before they asked to vote again this year. Now, because of today's decision, that is highly, highly unlikely. It's a terrible disservice to the people of this nation. So now the American people have to do what the courts should have been willing to do, but will not. The American people have to render a judgment about Donald Trump's behavior. The American people must decide whether Donald Trump's assault on our democracy on January 6th makes him unfit for public office in the highest office in the land.
Again, he put out a tweet as soon as he heard saying support the law enforcement. Then he put out a video saying peacefully go home. He also offered 10,000 people. Oh my gosh, my mind went completely blank. 10,000 people. Why has my mind gone blank? Try the tip of my tongue. 10,000 National Guard. He also offered 10,000 National Guards to Pelosi and was it Mayor Bowser? And he was refused. He offered them because he wanted to make sure that there was safety and security for all. And you have that when you have a good force of law enforcement. They said no. He offered. He tried.
The American people must decide if Trump's embrace of violence to preserve his power is acceptable.
He's never called for violence, ever. Biden kind of has in a roundabout way many times, but Trump hasn't.
Perhaps most importantly, the American people must decide if they want to entrust the president once again, the presidency, to Donald Trump, now knowing he'll be even more emboldened to do whatever he pleases whenever he wants to do it.
I never voted for Trump in 2016 or 2020. In 2016, I thought it was basically just another false dichotomy. You know, Obama or McCain, ugh. Bush or Kerry, ugh. Obama or Romney, ugh. To me, Trump was just another New York businessman that was a recently converted Democrat and corrupt. And I was wrong. In 2020, I was not exactly happy with his bump stock ban or the assassination of Soleimani, as well as the missile strike in Syria. But for the most part, I thought his presidency was not terrible. And now after 4 years of Biden, his president or Trump's presidency was amazing in comparison. Regulations were stripped out. The border wall was being constructed to help with illegal immigration. A lot of good things were happening, but he was a bit constrained by the deep state. If he could not be constrained by the deep state and actually return us to even 1980s or 1990s government size, I would be over the moon, and I would vote for him 10 times a day. Well, just once, because I'm not a Democrat. But it's insane to think that Trump would be unfettered in his crazy ability to do anything. He's the only president that we've had for quite some time that has never started a new war. He didn't finish, or he didn't end all the wars, but at least he didn't start them. What have we got under Biden? Botched withdrawal from Afghanistan, the Ukraine, including the Nord Stream 2 pipeline being blown up under mysterious circumstances. Nigeria is going crazy. The October 7th attack on Israel. Biden doesn't have a very good track record. And anytime he brings anything up, it makes him look worse than Trump, because Trump's presidency wasn't actually that bad. And that's why all he has to run on is Orange Man bad.
You know, at the outset of our nation, it was the character of George Washington, our first president, that defined the presidency. He believed power was limited, not absolute. And that power always resides with the people, always. Now, over 200 years later, today's Supreme Court decision, once again, it'll depend on the character of the men and women who hold that presidency that are going to define the limits of the power of the presidency, because the law will no longer do it.
Again, the only thing the Supreme Court did was reaffirm the precedent that the president has presidential immunity for any acts within the bounds of the president. That's all they did.
Dad! I know I will respect the limits of the presidential powers I have for 3.5 years. But any president, including Donald Trump, will now be free to ignore the law.
That's such gaslighting right there. He has flaunted the presidency quite a few different times, or at least his handlers have. The Supreme Court said you cannot pay off student loan debt. That is unconstitutional. And what has he done? He's paying off student loan debt directly against what the Supreme Court said. That seems pretty blatant right there. And really, I think that's probably an impeachable offense. He's not living up to his oath of office. But, well, our Congress is feckless right now, so yeah.
I concur with Justice Sotomayor's dissent today. Here's what she said. She said, in every use of official power, the president is now a king above the law.
Impeach him then. Impeach, convict in the Senate, and then try him in a court of law. That's how it is.
With fear for our democracy, I dissent. End of quote. So should the American people dissent. I dissent. May God bless you all, and may God help preserve our democracy. Thank you. May God protect our troops.
Why do the best Democrats beat Trump?
And he leaves without taking any questions, because the questions would probably be related to his decline in mental acuity and his overall poor debate performance. One thing about Jan 6th that I forgot to mention, there were a few people that died on Jan 6th. I'm not sure if you guys are aware. Trump supporters, a few of them died. 2 of heart attacks, 1 of an accidental overdose, and 1 was shot to death, Ashley Babbitt. She was unarmed and she was no threat to anyone. And she was murdered, in my opinion. And the guy that murdered her should be tried for murder. On the law enforcement side, there was 1 stroke victim, Officer Brian Sicknick. And initially, it was reported that he died on Jan 6th, but that was a lie or a misreporting of the facts. When he messaged, I think it was a brother or a family member of some sort, he said that he was fine other than a little bit of mace that he got in his eyes, I think. And then the next day, he died of a stroke. That's sad. I feel sorry for him and his family. But that wasn't directly related to Jan 6th, in my opinion, at all. There wasn't an autopsy done on him, and he was immediately cremated. That seems a bit suspect to me. Also, there were 4 suicides from the police officers. I don't know why they committed suicide. I don't know if they left any suicide notes or anything, but that also seems a little bit weird. Why would those police officers commit suicide days or months after the riot? If they were defending democracy, they should be proud of the service that they performed. Now, if they feel that they were in the wrong, maybe that would cause some mental strain on them and maybe cause them to take their own lives. I don't know. Again, I wasn't there. But yeah, I think it's pretty ridiculous what Biden was trying to spout off there, and so many lies and half-truths that it's just ridiculous. But those are my thoughts. What are yours? And if you could please like, share, and subscribe, I would love to see you again soon. Bye.